There is a study also that came out 10 years ago or a couple of years ago that said that we actually developed the ability to reason and argue. Basically, the ability to reason, to be able to explain our thoughts solely to win arguments. Not because we were curious, not because we want to know more, no, because to win arguments, to convince other humans, hey, listen to us, we know what we're talking about. So it is quite normal that in rationality, reasoning yourself or finding a way to reason with yourself and getting what you want is quite easy. Hi guys, and happy Friday. Welcome to the weekly Wassail. And today, as you can see, I'm alone without any guest because we are kicking off a new season of Wassail in which I realize that it is more interesting to me to discuss some of the issues that I have in my head with you guys directly, and some of the issues I would like to have an expert who can help me and guide me in trying to make sense of my thoughts. So, when you're starting a podcast, you want to do something. And me as a person, I always like to just try different things. So that's why you saw the podcast and a range of different guests that helped me learn so much about the world there is. But now I'm starting to realize that, okay, there is so much that I can learn. There's so much that I'm curious about, which I'll still do. But I also want to niche down into stuff that I really, really care about and niche down into stuff that I really, really want to share. And I also respect your time you're taking out time to watch these videos, that it's also something that is relevant to you instead of every random thing that comes into my head. Now, full disclaimer, it'll still be a bit random till an extent. It's just that it's going to be more related to the human and how we're trying to navigate the world together. So it's not going to be completely different or a new project or an idea, but more like thoughts and musings over why does this work this way and why do we do this and how can we change it. I'm trying my best to find the answers myself, and I feel like you are on this journey with me in trying to figure these answers out. So I have 3 topics today that I want to discuss, and I will try to keep them short so that it doesn't take an hour of me just talking alone, because I don't know if I'm comfortable here to discuss something for an hour long alone. With a guest, it's more fun, but alone, it feels a bit weird. I'll be honest with you. And I'm starting it off, I'm kicking it off, so it'll take some time for me to also get used to it, like I got used to the podcast as well. So the 3 topics that I had in mind is something that I have explored in this week, that I have been consuming stuff and experiencing stuff. Number one that is in my head was the changing role of men in this day and age. I watched this wonderful video. The link is in the description. I will attach it. It's from Big Think, I think. And it was about how a lot of men, working age men, so between the age of 18 to 29 till 30, are becoming more unemployed than usual, are dropping out of college faster than usual, and are also more single than usual. And by usual, what you mean is like average, and also compared to the other gender, to see how it feels. And of course, for this case, we're only looking at these 2 genders. So it got me thinking, why? And in the video, they try to answer a little bit of the why. That they're spending their time online, and it's due to the difficulty of adjusting to the new role of man, because men were always the breadwinners. That was their goal. And now, because women, on average, I think the survey that she quoted, 55% of women say they earn as much or more than their counterparts. That diminishes the role of what a man needs to be providing in a relationship. And my thought on that has been always, and this is going back to my parents' generation as well. If you think your role as a partner is only to provide money and nothing else, no wonder that there is a bit of a struggle in trying to find relationships, and it's trying to find your place in society, because that was our parents' generation. My father is a very good example of it. I love him to death, but his contribution to our family has been monetary. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's because of him that I'm here. It's because of him that I'm this educated. It's because of him that we're able to live the life we lived. It was all thanks to him. But that was his contribution. the person who I am today, in terms of my personality, in terms of my growth, has been through my mother because she was present, she was active, she was there to support us, and she also has her own flaws, like my father does. But that was the game that they consented to play with. That okay, you're going to go earn money, I'm going to take care of the kids, I'm going to run the household, and we'll see how the kids turn out. Nowadays, that's not possible. Nowadays, and it's not just because women have started to work and like they're disrupting the equilibrium of marriage. No, it's also the fact that sometimes women have to work because it's just getting very expensive. Capitalism is not letting us grow our wealth, our income, rather than the cost around us is just increasing and increasing. So a one income household has become a rarity in this day and age in the West. And a lot of people prefer that they could be at home and they could spend more time with the kids. And I'm one of those people. And I'm not a woman, but I'm one of those people whose priority is family. And my daughter is here. I would love to spend time today. At the time of this recording, this is supposed to be my Papa Dag, as we call it in the Netherlands, or Daddy Day, in which I'm taking care of her the whole day because my wife is busy working. So she takes care of her for 2 days. I take care of her one day in the working week so that we can help each other out. And I love this day from end to end, being there for her through all her shenanigans and everything. And I make this joke still that no matter how much I do now compared to my father, like how present we are as parents, still if she looks at me and she looks at her mother, she runs to her mother. And of course, this is just me speculating and me just being a bit grumpy about it, but there is some biology behind it. The mother is wanted more than the father. Because I could use that excuse on my father that, okay, he was never there for me. So that's why I always loved my mother more. But in this case, I'm here. Although she's, disclaimer, just 9 months old, so it's not like she has developed a brain or something. But going back to the topic of my wife was also telling me this that amongst her circle of work colleagues and friends and acquaintances, they also are saying that how we're just so tired. We don't really enjoy working anymore. And these are predominantly women. And I also feel the same, saying that I don't know. I don't feel like there's something I want to do 9 to 5 every day because I do get energy from it, but I get more energy from taking care of people around me, making lunch and dinner for my family, being there for my daughter, being there for my wife. So your role is changing, and doesn't mean that the new equilibrium is the best equilibrium we have, and that doesn't mean that the equilibrium we had in the past was the best equilibrium we had, right? That is not the case here. So that's something we need to understand that these men who are aching for those good old days or who are struggling a little bit to find their place. Let me correct that. It's not really aching for the good old days. It's actually just struggling to find their place because it's not like they want to go back to that macho lifestyle of man doing everything and woman being submissive. I don't think so. I cannot speak for most of them, but in that video as well, the woman was saying a lot of surveys said that it was empathy. They were looking for empathy. But in my opinion, they're looking for empathy in the wrong place. When they look at these manfluencers who are examples like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, where they talk about really like macho stuff and the ideal man, you hear reminiscences of the past of those days when men were supposed to be like alphas and leaders and all of that stuff. But that is not how most men will find themselves in this situation in these days because it is a new equilibrium and it is not a bad equilibrium. Sharing something with your partner, having a 50-50, supporting each other to grow, dividing responsibilities is quite egalitarian. And there's been studies in the past as well where the man that we really revere and love is still recent. And by recent, I mean during the age of civilization, that you had kings and warriors and all of those things. But during hunter-gatherer times, there were a lot of tribes with men as alphas. But if you go back, there was also a time when in hunting and gathering, women used to be the leaders. They used to be the warriors, and the men used to be the supporters. And that doesn't mean one is subordinate or the other. No, the reason behind those thinking, exactly the reason behind the other hunting gathering philosophy of men being the warriors and women being the gatherers is based on their biology. Men had more physical strength, so they could use that to get food and defend, while women were more tuned to raising kids and also more tuned to gathering food because they had more sensitivity, more delicate touches. And this is not my opinion only. This is just a study that I'm quoting. And I could have made a paraphrase a little bit with my bias, but it's not like I do believe that this is the only reason. There are a multitude of different reasons. Going back, things have changed, and we only try to stick to the rules that we enjoy because we want, because those are the ones in which we will come out better. But what we need to understand now is that you are in a place in time where you need to realize that staying online, playing video games to achieve some sort of excitement that you reached a goal, communicating in your own echo chambers, thinking that there is someone out there who feels for you but is baiting you into thinking other stuff as well, might not be the right decision. And I'm not the right person to say this because maybe I don't feel the same way. And I think that is something no public figure will acknowledge and accept, that they feel they don't feel the way you feel. People like Andrew Tate, people like Jordan Peterson, and I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just giving examples of very famous man influencers. These are the only two actually I know because I'm not following them much. They tell you the stories of how much pain you are in because you don't know where you are in the world, and these are the reasons you're struggling, and they want to look out for you. I believe them. I want to believe them, but they're not in that same place as you are. So when you look up to them, when you look up to anyone, and be it celebrities or influencers or sports athletes or leaders, no one is in the same place as you are. And we need to understand that, we need to acknowledge that. And why I'm bringing this up is because I also don't feel the same. Because for me, maybe it was because I was raised by my mom in a way that I was always a bit more on the feminine side, you would say, in trying to be more supportive in the household chores and trying to be more in tune with family, not really excited about the ambition that comes with a career, because all of those things never appealed to me much. So now, when I read studies about these, when I read stories about these, that men are struggling, I also feel to resonate as strongly as someone else, because I do like, it's not that difficult. And that's the funny part. It's not that difficult is how I can say so easily, but I don't know what other person is going through. But at least I'm honest that I don't know what you're going through. And any advice I give you, any how, any why I give you, will not help you. In my opinion, it will only make you think I can help you because you believe I'm here to help you. And that's how people look up to those kind of influencers or man influencers, as she said, and think that they have the answer. My 15-year-old cousin, 15, he was telling me how you should be looking at Andrew Tate. He makes money like this. It's so easy and everything. And I'm like, you're 15 years old. And this is the role model you're looking for. Means I also feel as a person, as a man in his life, that he thinks the person to look up to is Andrew Tate, because that's all over the internet. And the algorithm really likes to show young kids very controversial figures because they just want them hooked on the app. And there are studies over that how young women are also shown more body dysmorphia videos on purpose because that's ad revenue and that's eyeballs. Anyways, this is all I want to talk about in this. I think it is a changing time, but I don't think it's the end of the world. And I know it might feel like the end of the world to you, and I can't feel what you feel. But what I can say is it's not as bad as we think it is. It's just that for us, going from a privileged class of having everything we wanted, being the breadwinner, being the leaders, being in charge, to now suddenly having to be sharing responsibilities feels a bit more like a downgrade, feels a bit more like, am I settling or am I compromising? But in reality, this is just a new normal. Like there was a new normal with when democracy came in instead of monarchy, and that one person was like, this is the new normal. Whether or not they liked it, they had to adjust to it. They had to adjust to a time where they were not the supreme leader anymore, and now you had to answer to more than one person. Same as here. It might feel like it's the end of the world. It might feel like those were the good old days, but this is the new normal, and this is a better normal. Just like democracy was a better normal, right? That is the first topic that I wanted to talk about. The second topic might be a good segue, but it is about lenses and how it affects the way we see things around us. And I want to start this topic by actually sharing a story of the meetups that I go to. And it was a wonderful meetup. They're wonderful people, and I get to learn a lot from them. And the topic was rationalism or rationality in this day and age. What value does it get, right? And naturally, when you go into rationality or rationalism, these are two different things. Somehow you start bringing up empiricism. I can assume you might know these things, but I can also share a little bit of an example of this, introduction of this, so that I don't feel like I'm assuming too much. Rationalism is a branch of philosophy where you think you can make decisions based on logic, right? That logic and induction and deduction are the tools for you to figure everything out. That's rationalism. All you need is logic, and you can figure out the world around you. Empiricism is about observations. It's not just about logic and theory. It's about what is around you, your sensory perceptions, what they see, what you observe, and that is the real truth, right? Rationality is in the middle. Rationality is saying that I make decisions, practical decisions as a person, using a reasoning process. But this doesn't mean that the reasoning I use can be sound or correct. It's just reasoning. There is a study also that came out 10 years ago or a couple of years ago that said that we actually developed the ability to reason and argue. Basically, the ability to reason, to be able to explain our thoughts solely to win arguments. Not because we were curious, not because we want to know more, no, because to win arguments, to convince other humans, hey, listen to us, we know what we're talking about. So it is quite normal that in rationality, reasoning yourself or finding a way to reason with yourself and getting what you want is quite easy. Now, because you call it rationality, people think, oh, they're smart. People think that they are using science or using logic to be able to solve or to be able to come to the conclusion that they did. But that is what I want to talk about today. You have different lenses, and every lens that you have is a product of the culture, the biology, the environment, the education, the exposure to internet media you have. And that lens will always cover whatever reality you want to see. And it will also be the first premise you use in your reasoning arguments whenever you start a reasoning argument, because you reason from somewhere, right? There is a premise that you begin with. There is a point that you go like, okay, this I believe to be true, and from here I will go on to the next thing. And what you believe to be true are your internal biases, and there's nothing wrong with that. And an example, when we were talking about these things, we were discussing in another meetup, we were discussing free will, and in free will, everyone wanted to believe and say that we believe there is a certain amount of free will in our actions that we can do, but yeah, in the grand scheme of things, everything is planned out. So we don't know what's going to happen to us 50 years from now, but we do know that it will be one of the few things that we will do today, and the few things like are already decided for us. So the example I gave was that knowing my body, knowing where I'm from, my genes, my genes, my environment, my culture, the kind of environment I was raised in, it will be very difficult for me to be an elite athlete, solely because of maybe my genes, my whatever the reason I gave. And I also had a very bad injury in my back from quite a young age of like 16 or something. So I was not going to be an elite athlete, no matter how much I wanted to try. So that door will always be closed to me. If you're a free will person, you'll be like, no, you can do whatever you want. Yeah, but I do know that it is not possible. I can try my best. I can be athlete at max, but elite athlete is out of the window. So I accept that. I accept that in my life, I control a lot of my choices, but most of my choices will lead me to only a few outcomes in life. And those few outcomes are already decided for me. How will I reach there? That is completely up to me. But my destiny of sorts is written, but it's not just one thing. It is a multitude of different things. And how I reach them is an infinitely different choice set that I can make. But it is that. So when we were discussing these things, my thing was from this perspective, right? This perspective of what I can control and what I cannot control, a stoic mindset. Someone's was a religious mindset, that no, I believe God is there and he decides or she decides everything for us. And they have given us some wiggle room, but that's it. Another person said, no, my biology is the lens I look at, and I know biology has a lot of determinism in it, but it also has some randomness, so I believe in the mixture of it. We had a quantum physicist who started talking about how randomness, which is a very important thing in quantum physics apparently, is the reason that he thinks there's some kind of free will and then some kind of determinism, and so on and so forth. So, do you understand what I'm saying? Everyone had a lens, but we were talking about the same thing. We were all talking about the same thing, that yes, there is a certain amount of free will, and the rest, we think it's determined. We just don't care enough about it. But everyone had their own reasoning to it. Everyone had their own perspective to it. It's because of chaos. It's because of biology. It's because of stoicism. It's because of religion. Now, if you take that example and bring it to rationality and to how we see the world around us, it is quite easy for me to understand and extrapolate why we have so many differing opinions and why everyone believes that they're right. Because everyone is looking at the world from their lens. When I was young, there was this story, there's meme all the time that said that it's not one truth. And the picture was a person looking at a 6 from this direction and a person looking at the 9 from this direction. And then they were like, it's a 6, it's a 9. And they were like, the truth is depending on where you're standing. And I was like, that's bullshit. The truth is only one. It is a 6 or a 9. Simple as that, right? Objective truth is only one. Facts and science is only one. But the more I grow older, the more I realize how these things are done, how objective truth doesn't exist for us. Because I personally believe we do not know what an objective truth is. We are trying to figure it out. But whatever we try to figure out is also limited to our understanding and tool set that we have. So you can imagine the chaos that comes in with it. Because then nothing is true or everything is true. And how much leeway would you give people in their reasoning? Is everything justified because of the way they were raised? Is everything justified because of the religion that they are from? Is everything justified because they believe in democracy and science? We don't know. What we do know is as society, Western society, we have accepted science to be the best we have. We've accepted democracy to be the best we have. In the East, that's not true. In the East, we don't believe that the will of the people or the wisdom of the crowd is correct per se, because we believe that some few people know better than others. In the East, we also believe that science might not be the only answer. Some people have theology and religion to look for answers in. Some people have alternative medicine, which comes from the history of that environment, like India has such a rich history, such rich traditions, cultures, that we even in the West still learn and import, right? So they prefer their ancestry and their ancestral rituals and beliefs and stories and theories over Western science, which is fine, right? It's their perspective. The problem happens when one person starts believing that this is the truth and nothing but the truth. And if you start with that premise, then you're automatically believing that everyone else around you is wrong. And then also your attitude towards that becomes a bit difficult then. Like, have you ever tried, and I'm assuming we are of the similar mindset, that we believe that Western medicine does a good job as much as it can, but COVID vaccine was a success, a massive success in that perspective. So when you meet an anti-vaxxer, for example, how would you want to talk to them? Because I don't know. If you would have told me in 2020 when I would meet a anti-vax, I would be mad. I'd be like, are you serious? But now I'm like, I still think you're wrong. But I understand that you must have come to this reason for some reason. And I'm really curious to hear that reason. I'm really curious to understand what experiences you went through in life to develop the mindset that you believe medicine and propaganda is one and the same, and this is all part of a ploy to control us, or a part of the ploy to sell, and it's a capitalist move, or whatever have you. I'm curious and excited to understand, how does a person come to that conclusion? Because I cannot. I have my own biases, so I cannot come to that conclusion. I know the flaws of science, and that's something I'm gonna cover in the third topic that we're gonna have for today. But it is the best we have for now. And I was so excited in that meetup when I was talking to them about rationality, rationalism, and empiricism, and I was telling them all my ideas, and they were all telling me their ideas, and we were so excited. But in the end, the conclusion was that nothing is true and we don't know. And that is the same for all the lenses around us. It is a lens you're wearing. These are rose-tinted glasses that everyone has on. So you're not wrong for having these biases. You're wrong, or I would say you are accountable to acknowledge them. Understand the biases that you have. So when you go into a discussion, an argument, or try to learn more, you understand that there is a reason why you think the way you think. And I think that's all I can ask and I can expect or I can do for myself. Just understand that there is a cloak in front of me that is tinting the way I'm looking at everything around me. As long as I know there is one, I'm hoping that I'm in the right direction to understand more about the universe. And this leaves me to topic number 3. And it's about empiricism and how we believe that is the answer to everything. Now, I love podcasts a lot. And there's this podcast that I listened to that talked about the birth of empiricism. So most people have heard that story about David Hume and all of that. But he explained it in a very nice way that before empiricism, before science, as we know now, science was very holistic. Departments of philosophy or departments of science would actually include theology. They would include humanities, which doesn't make sense, right? You're like, but this is science. How can this be religion in it? But it was. It was before the birth of empiricism, which is around the era of Renaissance. In the medieval era, you had science and religion working side by side in the West and also in the East, in the Middle East, in the Islamic Empire. It's considered one of the golden ages of Islam and also of the world, because the Islamic Empire was the empire that translated all the Greek text to Arabic to learn from and grow from, which were then imported back into Europe during the Renaissance, or like that caused the Renaissance. Because when Europe fell into a medieval age, they were not caring much about the history anymore. So that all could have been lost, right? So that was imported back into the Renaissance era. So it was very holistic. Medicine was also about not just how your body is reacting, but how your mind is and how your society around you, how you are as a human being, how you are as a social animal. Same with science of physics and chemistry. Same with philosophy, religion. Everything was intertwined. It was holistic. So when empiricists came along, they were like, you know what? It's great that we focus it like this, but we are slow. We are slow because we are trying to measure stuff which cannot be measured, right? Stuff like consciousness, religion, all of that stuff is difficult for empiricists, because empiricists is material. The right definition is they're called materialists in a way, because they're like, let's see what we can observe, but what you can observe around you, everything, this is what we're talking to each other in, the microphone, the internet, it's all observable in a way. We can see it, we can count it, we can measure it. And that's material, all of this. So they were like, let's focus. Their initial idea was, let's focus on what is material so that we can measure it, and the rest, let's keep that away in a separate box and continue research in the way we do it. But we want to take the stuff that you can measure and bring it into this box. That was the birth of empiricism. But for some reason now, we think that is the only answer to life. We think if you cannot explain it by science, then it doesn't exist. That is not true. That is completely false, because science has its limitations, and the funny part is the scientific method takes that into account. It says that science only knows what it knows so far. We never know what is going to be afterwards, because we don't know. You would know a real scientist from a person who's not a real scientist by only the amount of times they say, I don't know. And a scientist will say, I don't know a lot, if they actually don't know stuff, and if science can explain it. They won't need to claim something or come to some rational argument just for the sake of it. They're like, we don't know. We don't know. We'll try to find out, but we don't know so far. And that is great to be able to have that ability to say, you don't know. We will think about it. Let's see. So empiricists now and science now in its hard sense still functions like that, right? Educated scientists are like this. Some of them believe that science is the answer to everything and they will shut down everything. Like you have atheists who are against religion, you have hardcore like medicine professionals who completely don't believe in alternative medicine of sort. You have so many people who don't believe in any type of holistic treatment. But it is also difficult to understand what science does. So let me share some stories with you. When science does something, when you see a research that comes out, even they have a lens, as I discussed in the previous part, they have a lens of how they're looking at things. They also start with a hypothesis, and they have to either prove or deny that hypothesis based on the results. Academic fraud is a very big thing, actually. 1 to 2% of every academic paper released every year. So that's 1 in 100 or 2 in 100 papers every year have smudged numbers. So they're blatantly fraudulent. The numbers have been tweaked to get the answer that the author wanted. Why? Because the academia and the institutions work in a way that you only are celebrated if you have a lot of papers. So you can imagine the quality of the paper starts to go down a little bit. Next, there are sampling biases. A lot of Western medicine was practiced upon white young males, and that is why a lot of Western medicine still does not apply properly to pregnant women, to children, or to the elderly, because they were very dangerous to be experimented on. So the biology that is taken into account in every development of the medicine does not take into account the biology of more than 50% of the population in a way, right? I mean, by that I mean women versus men, but also elderly, children, and pregnant women. So it's a sampling error, it's a sampling bias, and not also Western men, Western white males, not Eastern. You don't know how their biology works, so that's also a different argument. So that's just two parts: academic fraud, also your sampling bias. But then again, you go into sponsorships. In the 1970s, 80s, a lot of research was coming out how tobacco is not bad for you. Guess who was sponsoring that? Tobacco companies. In the 1990s, a lot of sugar companies, confectionaries, all of that, they commissioned a lot of studies to tell you that fat is the problem, not sugar. Fat is the problem. That's where you had the whole facade of low fat. And now, after decades, you have research coming out that no, fat is not the problem. You have like literally ketogenic diets in which you eat fat and you're healthy. So fat is not the problem. The problem was sugar. The problem was eating more than necessary. The problem was eating processed food. And now we're at the time that processed food and ultra processed food is gaining traction for not being healthy for you. But you have studies coming out that are saying that not all processed food is not bad. Guess who's commissioning that? And that is the thing. So you have academic fraud, you have sampling biases, you have sponsorships. This is just the tip of the iceberg. These are the ones that I know. I don't even know what else biases and lenses the scientific method has. But that is the harsh reality, that even science has its own biases, because the researchers are humans and humans have their own biases. And they're working in a system created by humans and humans have their own biases. And they cannot measure for every single human being because human beings are diverse. So when you hear stories about cigarette is bad for you, that is objectively true on a certain confidence level. And what does that mean? It means that on average, you have an 80% chance or 90% chance of getting cancer if you smoke cigarettes. But that's still on average. And that doesn't mean I'm encouraging you to smoke cigarettes. Don't do it. You will, it's not even that you will get cancer. You will just have a very bad life, health-wise, even if you don't get cancer. A friend of mine actually genuinely didn't believe that cigarettes cause cancer. He's like, I know a 99-year-old who smokes cigarettes and he's perfectly fine. So why would I believe that cigarettes cause cancers and is bad for your health? I'm like, dude, there's literally research on it. He's like, yeah, but look at that person in front of me. Well, he's doing his own kind of sampling error, right? And science does not work on absolutes. There are people who are going to be on the ends of the distribution, so might not affect them as much as it might affect the average person. And we are average people around us. If you assume that in every distribution we are the outliers for everything in life, that will cause us more harm than good. So we are on average like a typical human being, and it can affect us like an atypical human being. But there are always going to be outliers. Same with the COVID vaccination, when people are like, oh, look, this is happening. This person got this person got this, a hole in their hair, arm, or something like that. Yeah, side effects are common. They are listed down in the vaccination, that you might get some side effects because, again, they are tested and treated upon a sample of people, not all of them. And it was rolled out all over the world. So there is a big chance that some biology of a person did not mix well with the vaccination and caused some problems. It is quite reasonable to expect that. Does it make it okay? No. But what are the choices we had at that point in time when we were making that decision? So this is something I really want you guys to understand. Science, just like democracy, is not a perfect system. It is the best we have so far, but it's not a perfect system by far. There are a lot of things we can still improve. There are a lot of things we should improve. And why am I telling you this is because it's quite easy to fall into the science camp or fall into the alternative pseudoscience camp. But these two camps are still okay for me. The worst of the lot is people who use scientific facts, manipulate them in trying to get their pseudoscience or their alternative views across. And they're doing exactly the same thing that all of these other people with their biases are doing, such as academic fraud, sampling, or sponsorships. They're cherry picking data, finding research studies done on very different type of a sample, sponsored by some company, to prove people that, oh look, science says this. Now my friend who was always quoting the 99-year-old, he isn't. You can say he isn't wrong, but okay, he has his reasons. He's using his own lens and the environment around us, and it's his own lens to make his argument. That's fine. He might be wrong in my eyes, but he is reasonable. He is rational. But this person takes data, cherry picks it apart to fulfill their hypothesis, to mislead on purpose. That is wrong. That is manipulation of the highest degree. That is evil to an extent. And I don't believe people are evil, but that is evil because you're doing that on purpose. The difference is my friend is not doing that on purpose. He genuinely believes it because that's his experience. That's what he has seen around him. So he believes it. Smoking cigarettes is okay because everyone around me does it. That's fine. A person who believes science will be like, smoking is bad because I read all these researches about it. Fine. But this person might know that smoking is bad. They might have read the research, but they choose to go for the other research, which proves them that, no, look, I knew it is bad, no matter what people say, and this is what I'm going to propagate to people now. Google is a funny thing. You might think information is at our fingertips, but that also means disinformation is also at our fingertips. And I always like to tell people to do this exercise, although I think you must have done it already. If you believe in something and you're trying to find something on Google about it, find it if you can. Then write the opposite down and see if you can find scientific research on that as well. And I can bet you more often than not you will. So you will have people saying smoking bad for you, you'll have people saying smoking good for you. You'll have people saying fat is bad for you, you'll see people saying fat is good for you. You will find scientific evidence on both sides because scientific method is not hard. It's just testing and observing. And if you cherry pick the data really, really well, you might find people who can actually have an increase in health span and quality of life while even smoking cigarettes, for example. Does that make it a scientific fact? Not really, because science works on aggregates. The better the sample, the bigger the sample, the more accurate it will get slowly. So that's why I always go for research that has big sample sizes, because they're trying to be representative of the whole population. Representative is also a good way of looking at it. What kind of distribution did the sample have? Was it just male? Was it all young? Was it a diverse group of people that will apply to you as a person? I'm a brown person. If I read from Western medicine, half of it doesn't even apply to me because sampling was not to my biological state. And that's a separate debate. A lot of doctors tell me, no, it doesn't matter what your biology is. Some things are quite simple, and they're doctors, so I believe them till I find a reason not to. So it is a complex thing. It is a complex journey that we're on in the world where information is so abundantly available and everyone has the ability to share their opinions like I'm sharing with you guys. Doesn't mean that everyone who has a voice and has a following might be right. It just means that they have the ability to say something. I think that is a very nice place to end it. And I am hoping that you like this format. If you don't, I'm happy to hear feedback about it. Tell me if this is interesting than the other ones. Tell me if this is not interesting compared to the other ones. I enjoy it, but you saw myself that I was thinking a lot because this is my first time doing it on camera alone, and talking for 30, 40 minutes is a long time, and I don't know how to feel about that. But it is a journey we're on. We're on a journey, as we said, to navigate the world around us, trying to understand the world around us. And I feel like I do it better if I know I'm doing it for others, not just for myself. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you next time.